Welcome on in. Belly up, have a seat, and grab a drink as we talk some Wingman Fantasy Football. Welcome on into another edition of Wingman Fantasy Football, the league podcast. I'm your host, Michael Furley, and as always, I'd like to thank all of you, or any of you who may be watching or listening to today's show. It is Monday, November 17th. This is episode 195, and we're about to have our Week 11's two-point conversation. And it's my great pleasure, my distinct honor, to welcome back to the bar Mr. Bernie, a.k.a. Team B.
I'm Cuban B. Yes, Cuban B.
How you doing today, Bernie?
I am doing wonderful. How are you, Michael?
Fantasy-wise, not good. Everything else, okay, I guess. Just a weekend of rest. I think last time we spoke, the Thursday night game was going on, and you were dealing with the Travion Henderson breakout. Were you able to survive it? How are you looking this week so far?
Yeah. My opponent, Lionized, had his last players play the 4:00 game. So I've got two players playing on Sunday night and one defense playing on Monday night. So I am doing just fine.
All right. All right, guys, in this show, we will start off with some player news. We'll go through the studs and duds for Week 11, and we'll also settle into our Week 11's two-point conversation, where we will go through all of the Week 11 action up to this point, and then we'll take a look at some early waiver wire targets. Spoiler alert, we had tons of injuries, and we'll have to determine how severe they are going forward. But before we do any of that, I want to make sure that everybody is in the room. Wingmen assemble! All right, now that everyone is here, let's get into some news and notes. Starting off with players that were placed on the IR late in the week heading into Week 11, Graham Gano, kicker for the New York Giants, was placed on the IR with a neck injury. And due to NFL rules being that this will be his second stint on the IR, his season is now officially over. J.K. Dobbins, this one was a little him and hawing all week. We were talking about it, not really sure how it's going to go. He eventually was placed on the IR. He's going to have foot surgery, which means he's going to be out for the rest of the regular season for the NFL, which means his fantasy football season is done. Garrett Wilson was placed on the IR just prior to the team's Thursday night game. Being that one game is already in the books, he has 3 more games he is going to have to miss before he's able to return as he deals with that aggravated knee injury. Sam Laporta was also placed on the IR on Saturday. I didn't even know he was hurt going into Friday, but he was placed on the IR on Saturday. They're playing right now as we're recording this, that is. So he'll have 3 more games after the show post that he will have to miss. And then Brian Thomas Jr. was the only player that I saw that was questionable going into Sunday that ended up being inactive. He's dealing with that ankle injury that kept him out last week, and now he's missed 2 consecutive weeks. All right, Bernie, we'll stop right here with the players who didn't play today. 4 of them got put on the IR, and Brian Thomas Jr. was a late scratch, or not a late scratch. We weren't sure what he was going to do, but ended up being inactive.
Graham Gano, that's unfortunate. He's got a lot of money. He's got like a $16.5 million contract. Koo is on the practice squad, or was on the practice squad. And then they also have Ben Sauls for a little bit of insurance because we all know about Koo. J.K. Dobbins, obviously RJ Harvey is going to benefit from that. Garrett Wilson, it's the Jets moving along. Sam Laporta, though, that's a concern. This offensive battle that's going on here is, and I say that with scare quotes. It's not good. They really could use a tight end, especially when they can't get the ball downfield with this wind factor going on here.
Yeah.
And then Brian Thomas Jr. With Travis Hunter out. Jacoby Myers was acquired in the trade. Parker Washington becomes a primary target now. So there's lots going on there for Trevor. They did have a really, really good game this week, though.
All right. We're going to, these next two, we're going to keep them together because it's the only positive news I can see here. We had Brock Purdy and Ricky Pearsall both return to the lineup. Brock Purdy taking over the starting quarterback gig here. In terms of fantasy, I think I can tend to agree with you to some degree that they're equivalent to Mac Jones, but in terms of just smoothness and full potential of the offense, I think Brock Purdy is much better for the 49ers. Obviously, he's been there longer. And I think you saw that firsthand today, how Brock Purdy can unlock some of the legacy players for the 49ers. What do you have on these two 49ers finally getting back after 5, 6, 7 weeks of missed time?
Yeah, with his almost full arsenal going on here, Brock Purdy did a good job. And I think that we just let's not forget Mac Jones went 5 for 3, and he was very efficient, 268.9 yards per game, at a 69% completion clip. So it wasn't all bad. But yeah, you're right. The connection that Purdy's got with Kittle, Juwan Jennings, this is a good thing. Ricky Pearsall, you said? You
Yeah.
said Ricky Pearsall returns again. It's another part of the arsenal. Brian Ayuk remains on the pup, so all of these guys, Pearsall, Jennings, Kittle, they're all gonna have a little bit of an upside bump here.
All right. As you're saying, I was thinking of something else real quick. Oh, I was going to say, Mac Jones did obviously a commendable job as a backup. What do you go, 5-1 or something like that? 4-1, give or take.
Yeah,
So I
five and
mean,
5 and 3.
he was 5-3 as a starter. It seemed better than that. Anyway, nonetheless, he showed he's going to get paid for a long time into his late 30s. If you can show you can be a backup who can come in and stay 500 and keep your team afloat, that's really
Mhm.
all these backups are. Shoot, Joe Flacco went from out of the league to getting paid millions of dollars late into his 40s here because he can win a couple games out of 5. So this is the best job in the world as a backup quarterback. This is the healthiest, safest job, and all you got to do is win 2 out of 4 games, and you'll keep that job.
Exactly, unless your name is Kirk Cousins. You already got
Oh,
paid.
we'll get into that a little bit later. All right, now for some players who left today's games early, and there's some variation in terms of severity. Actually, most of these are not overly severe, although they might be out a couple of weeks depending on the results from tests. So let's get into it here. We had Drake London. I watching this game. I didn't even see him leave, but he left the game late in the Falcons' loss against the Panthers with a knee injury. Initial reports are positive that is not going to be a season-ending injury. However, further tests will be needed to confirm the availability and how much time the star wide receiver might miss. At this point, I would just say bank on him missing 1 to 2 weeks. But again, that's a speculation at this point. Josh Jacobs, this one's big in terms of just the fact that he's one of the biggest players here. Left the game early with a knee injury. At the moment, it is also not considered serious. A test after the game seemed to show stability, and no X-ray showed any damage of over concern. But with imaging later in the week, they'll get a little better idea on the running backs' availability going forward as well. Aaron Rodgers left the game going into halftime here as he injured his left wrist on a fall on one of the last throws of the first half. He did not come out of the locker room in terms of being dressed and ready to go. So Mason Rudolph finished the game. And again, one of those guys who's not great, but a decent backup quarterback. He can keep the team alive, a good game manager. We've seen it for years now. Michael Penix left the game in the third quarter as he aggravated his knee that he injured earlier in the season. There's a decent chance Kirk Cousins might be making the start for the next couple of weeks for the Falcons here. I got a repeat here, Bernie, so ignore that one. What do we have on these guys so far? We've got our Falcons with Drake London, Michael Penix, and we've got the Green Bay Packers, Josh Jacobs, and an old Packer, and Aaron Rodgers, who left the game early today.
Yeah, Penix and London. That's a tough one. I mean, that's pretty much 50% of your offense right there, maybe even 75% of your offense right there. But Mooney, gonna keep saying his name. Pitts, and obviously Bijan and Algier. They're gonna get a considerable amount of more looks. But it's Cousins. So hopefully in practice, they can come up with a game plan so Cousins doesn't have to do Cousins. He can just do Mac Jones kind
He
of
can do he
play
can
and
do
just be
uncles. He doesn't do cousins. He can do uncles.
exactly. And he could just be efficient about it all.
Yeah.
And then with Josh Jacobs, uh, Emmanuel Wilson, sorry, he's going to be the guy. Um, we're obviously going to monitor that and see what we can get out of Wilson. Who's behind Wilson? Do you know?
They got Chris Brooks is kind of like the third
Brooks.
downers kind of back, and
Yeah.
then they have the other is it other Brooks and another guy who's been hurt. I don't think he's coming back in the near future. So they don't really have a lot of guys back there.
Yeah. And then Mason Rudolph, he wasn't terrible, but who knows if that was the team that they were playing or if it was their offense. But their offense looked pretty decent. Will Howard will be activated, the rookie, for the backup there.
All right, I'm moving
And
along here. We had you have someone else to add there? I'm sorry, before I leave this
no,
section.
I was going to ask, did you get to Tootin?
No, I'm going there right now. Yep.
Okay.
We have Bayshell Tootin had a very strong game today in what I saw, and then I didn't actually see him leave because the game was kind of a blowout. That was one of the worst games as all the Chargers sat their guys all in the fourth quarter here. But Bayshell Tootin, who did have a strong game, was not able to finish as he left in the fourth quarter with an ankle injury. Again, all these injuries, which is good news, they're not deemed automatically severe, but anytime there's a bang up here, you want to kind of keep tabs on availability here. He looked really good in the time he had, but ETN is going to get all the carries now, and he was very effective today, even in the split role here. Chimere DK for the Tennessee Titans left in the first half after taking a big hit. The rookie was screened for a concussion. He did clear the concussion protocol, at least in the initial stages here, but he did suffer a chest injury on that hit, which kept him out from returning after halftime. This is the one injury that's actually kind of bad today. Calvin Ridley finally got back on the field after missing the last 3 games. However, he suffered a pretty gruesome leg injury. It's being called a broken fibula, and he is going to be done for the year. And we had Amari DiMercado left in the first half with an ankle injury. He was unable to return today. And Dylan Gabriel, this one's interesting, just of talking news, sports talk. Not that interesting for us as a fantasy community here, but Dylan Gabriel left in the second half with a concussion. Shedeur Sanders got onto the field and looked okay for about 4 plays, and then he didn't. But if Gabriel cannot clear the concussion protocol, Shedeur Sanders is a pretty strong candidate to get the start unless the coach really wants to find anybody off the street to put in there instead of Shedeur. Although Stefanski did already say if Gabriel can go, he is going to be the starter. This is not a chance for him to change the benching unless he cannot go. And Jaylen Warren also had a great start to the game and got kind of banged up and was in and out of the lineup. Left the game in the third quarter with an ankle injury. He did return for either one more play or one more carry. I did see him on the sideline, though. He didn't look overly uncomfortable, but he wasn't back in the game late there, as this was one of the blowouts, kind of a team running away with it here. So keep an eye on Jaylen Warren as Kenneth Gainwell gets big-time production anytime he's getting a lot more work than he normally would get. All right, went from Tootin down to Warren here. Anything you want to add to these particular injuries here?
Yeah, with DK and Calvin Ridley, you're going to have the Alec Ayumeyer and Van Jefferson and Mason Kinsey are now going to be your top options there. So if you're looking to get on the positive side of Cam Ward, those are the guys you're going to want to get on your team if you want to win. Yeah, DiMercado, Bam Knight. Bam Knight looked okay.
Yeah.
He didn't look horrible, but it was okay. So if you got a room on your bench, grab him, put him on there. And then Shedeur Sanders, yeah, you're right. There's nothing fantasy to discuss there. This is all just sports talk radio stuff now.
All right. And Jaylen Warren, if he's out, that's Kenneth Gainwell was actually picked up in our league this morning as one of those preemptive backups, and that could be a big time boon if Jaylen Warren misses any time. As Kenneth Gainwell in 2 starts has had big time numbers this year.
Is Gainwell any good if it's Mason Rudolph though?
It's a fair question. I don't consider Rudolph that much different in terms of offense than Rodgers. I think Rodgers is better for the receivers, but I don't think Rodgers is better for the total offense. So if they want to switch to a running game, I think Gainwell, although Gainwell did get a lot of his work in the passing game on those short checkdowns, which I think Rudolph can do just the same.
Yeah. And then don't forget Caleb Johnson is going to be behind him, the rookie.
Yeah, I wasn't sure because the announcers were also confused. Caleb Johnson got in the game there. He's been playing, on and off all year, but really not doing anything, getting like 3 carries for 1 yard all season long. Because he's number 20 and Jaylen Warren's number 30. So they're like, Jaylen Warren with the carry. I'm like, that doesn't look like Warren to me. That looked like a taller guy. But then Warren came in the next play. So they're kind of going in and out for a little bit there. But I thought Caleb Johnson, again, not with a lot of work, but I thought he looked better than he's looked all year, looked more decisive in a couple carries in a game that are already blown out. So there wasn't much pressure on him. But that might be a sneaky one to pick up if you find out Warren's out for extended period of time. This would be the time they might try and sprinkle in the rookie who had promise coming out of the draft. But good call there on Caleb Johnson.
Yeah.
All right, guys, it's now time to get into this week's Studs and Duds.
Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose.
Wingman Fantasy Football Studs and Duds.
All right, Bernie, why don't you start us off with our studs for week number 11?
All right. At the top of this list is a guy that was on a losing team, Jacoby Brissett, 26.08 points for Jacoby. I don't know if this is a typo, but it says 452 passing yards and 2 passing touchdowns for Jacoby. Great job, bud. Great job. And he was throwing it to Trey McBride, next guy up on the list, tight end, right off the bat. 22.5 fantasy points, 115 receiving yards, 10 receptions, and 1 touchdown. And another tight end that was on my team, 21.7 points for George Kittle, 67 receiving yards, 6 receptions, and 2 touchdowns. And Nico Collins, they put up a big fight over there on the Tennessee side. And Nico Collins had to come through. 19.7 fantasy points for Nico, 92 receiving yards, 9 receptions, and 1 touchdown.
Another tight end had a big day today. Travis Kelce, if only he was on my team, still at 19.6 points, 91 receiving yards, 9 receptions, and a big touchdown that I think either tied the game or they went ahead on that touchdown in the fourth quarter. So he had a big game at 19.6 points. Travis Etienne, Senior Muibian at 19.3 points. I want to remember this game, the Jacksonville game, a lot of talk about here. He had 73 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns. And Derrick Henry, fresh off his acquisition by one of our managers, Maydaddy 2s, had 19.2 points, getting 122 total yards on 2 catches, and he got in the end zone once. And the only positive thing for the Dolphins game this morning, other than their kicker, was Devon the Man Achane at 19 points, 165 total yards, and 5 receptions.
Good job. All right, next up we have Jimbo, James Cook, 18.9 fantasy points, 114 total yards, 3 receptions, and only 1 touchdown because his quarterback took all of the other ones. And now look at this guy. I didn't even know this guy was still in the league. Kenneth Walker, 18.6 fantasy points for Kenneth Walker, 111 total yards, 1 reception, and 1 touchdown. Christian Watson, it's nice to have you back. First couple catches back, and he's got 18.6 fantasy points, 46 receiving yards, 4 receptions, but 2 touchdowns for Christian Watson. And Debo, who?
Debo.
17.2 fantasy points for Debo, 77 total yards, 7 receptions, and 1 touchdown.
This one surprised me here. Devin Singletary, running back for the New York Giants, if you're not aware, 17.2 points on 47 total yards, 1 reception, but he got in the end zone twice. That'll always give you a big day. And literally, Buffalo traded out their entire receiving core this morning. They said, we're done with these bums. Tyrell Shavers, don't even know who that is, although he has a deal with a Dollar Shave Club at 17 points even. He got 19 receiving yards on 4 catches, and he got in the end zone. And this kicker, I don't know how he made the list because of points, obviously, but he did not perform well. Eddie Pinheiro missed 2 extra points today, but he made the list as he had 16.2 points as he made 3 field goals and 2 extra points. And the Pittsburgh defense, 15.25 points, 1 sack, 1 interception, 1 fumble recovery, and 2 defensive touchdowns, going along with a 4th down stop.
Oh, and this guy, I didn't even realize it till I have to read his name. He's like Mr. Halloween over here. Jason Myers? What? Isn't that 2 characters? 14.8 fantasy points for Jason. 4 field goals, 1 point after, and 1 50-plus yard field goal. And another scary Cleveland defense. 14 points for Cleveland defense. 5 sacks, 2 interceptions, 1 fumble recovery, and 1 defensive touchdown. And Matthew, I don't even know who that is. It sounds like a kicker, though. 12.9 fantasy points, 3 field goals, and 1 point after. And that was the game-winning field goal. Zane Gonzalez, 12.7 fantasy points for Zane, 2 field goals, 3 point afters, and 1 50-plus yard field goal.
We're going to finish off with some other special teamers here. Riley Patterson for the Miami Dolphins at 12.4 points. He had 3 field goals and 1 extra point, including the game winner in overtime in Madrid. And the Jacksonville defense, we were clowning Crazy Fish for picking up the Jacksonville defense for $1, and they came through as a stud this week. Never underestimate Crazy Fish's ability to pick up a streaming defense. At 12.5 points, they were dominating today at 3 sacks, 1 interception, 2 fourth down stops, and they held the Chargers to less than 135 total yards and under 7 points. They held only 6 points total this week. Our stud list was kind of short, guys, and our dud list is very long. So I don't know how you want to do this, Bernie. Let's try and read these as fast as we can to get through the pain. Why don't you start us off with some of our duds for Week 11?
All right. We got Mr. Joe Flacco up first, 11.96 fantasy points. We'll call him Sleepy Joe. Caleb Williams, 10.32 fantasy points. He's sitting on my bench. JJ McCarthy, 10 fantasy points. He should be sitting on the Minnesota's bench. And Aaron Rodgers, he got hurt. 9.44 fantasy points.
Finishing off with some more quarterbacks here. Lamar Jackson in a victory today at only 8.72 points. Michael Penix at 7.9. He wasn't doing great, but he did leave the game early. And Tua Tagovailoa played into overtime in a winning effort and can only get 6.84 points. Our first positional player to make the dud list here is Kinshawn Judkins at only 5.9 points.
Yes, and I love to see this guy on the list because his counterpart is on the stud list, but Zach Charbonnet is a dud. 5.7 fantasy points. Woody Marks, I shouldn't have started Woody Marks. 5.6 fantasy points. Wan'Dale Robinson, 5.6 fantasy points. Colston Loveland, 5.5 fantasy points. And these guys, we all had hope for. We all had hope for Marks, Robinson, and Loveland.
So some of these guys we're putting here just because we talk about them going into the week, and so we kind of want to finish the thought and let you know how they did because they're on the tip of our tongues in other conversations. So you might be like, Colston Loveland, who cares? But we did talk about him as a potential streaming tight end here. So if you were curious where they finished, this is kind of why we put some of these guys on this list. Justin Herbert, he got banged up a little bit, but he didn't leave the game. This was an awful offensive performance by the LA Chargers going across the country here at only 5.34 points. Rome Odunze at 5.1 points. Theo Johnson, again, we'll only mention him here because Bernie had him as a potential receiver for the Giants with Jameis Winston. Honestly, he looked better on the field than his stats today. He had a couple big catches and a couple called back, but he only had 5.1 points. And Rondé Gadsden, another Charger, there's going to be a lot of Chargers on this list, guys. Just be ready. 5.1 points for Rondé Gadsden.
Yeah, and let's remember for some of these receivers, penalties, bad throws, passing interference calls. These guys did good. The fantasy points don't really say the complete story here. All right, next up, Mason Taylor, five fantasy points for Mason Taylor. Darnell Mooney, tough time for Darnell. 4.9 fantasy points. Jamar Chase, oh man, you get paid a lot of money, bud. 4.5 fantasy points. And Tony Pollard, 4.1 fantasy points.
Jamar Chase was an angry little boy today. He was having not the best day. And then we had Xavier Worthy at 4 points even. Josh Jacobs, we mentioned, left early, but he was getting bottled up in this game prior to that at 4 points. Rashid Shaheed hasn't gotten going yet with his new team in Seattle at 3.9 points. Not blaming him, really. And Cade Otton can only get 3.8 points as well.
And Mr. Bill, Ja'Cory Krosky Merritt, 3.8 fantasy points for Bill. Cooper Kupp, at least Cooper Kupp made some points, 3.8 fantasy points. Jerry Jeudy had a really nice catch and run to get a first down late in the game, but only 3.6 fantasy points for Jeudy. And Harold Fannin, 3.6 for the Rook. You're up. Sorry.
Oh, yep. Sorry. I was going to let you go. Honestly, I was thinking the same thing you were by accident. Amari DiMercado left the game early with he only got 3 points. Parker Washington has actually been pretty good for the Jacksonville Jaguars for the last 3 weeks. He had one of his first duds in a while at 3 points. Matthew Golden missed last week, got back on the field and just can't get going at 2.9 points. And another Charger, a little lad McConkey at only 2.8 points.
Yes, and DJ, no more in my starting lineup. 2.6 fantasy points for DJ Moore. Kyle Stinky, 2 fantasy points. Kamani Vidal, 2.3 fantasy points, sorry. And Calvin Ridley, unfortunately, got hurt, 1.8 fantasy points.
I'm getting ready to stop putting this guy on the list here, Brashard Smith. But again, with Pacheco out, he's the second running back for the for the Chiefs, although Elijah Mitchell got a little bit of work today, not more than Smith, but a little bit. Rashard Smith only had 1.8 points. Nick Chubb, they've turned it over, man. He only had, turnovers as in interceptions, turned over the leaf to Woody Marks. He only had 3 carries today at 1.7 points. And Tez Johnson, after a 2-touchdown game last week, only got 1.1 point, as did Christian Kirk, only had 1.1 point.
And now we got a couple of defenses here. The next set of defenses, all 1 points. Cincinnati defense in a loss. Carolina defense in a win. New York Jets defense in a loss, all 1 points. And this guy, Lucas Haversick, you tell me what.
Yeah, he's the kicker for Green Bay. They called him up for McManus. He didn't miss one kick while he's played for McManus. The last time he was hurt, they brought him up today, and he missed almost every kick today.
Yeah, it is tough.
All right, finishing off here, we had Ricky Pearsall. We were happy to get him back on the field, but he only had like 1 catch for 0 yards at 0.5 points. Khalil Shakir did the same thing. And for the second time in either 3 weeks or 4 weeks, but the second time in recent memory, Quentin Johnson had the goose. We had a lot of duds this week, and honestly, this was a hit or miss week by far. For all these duds, we actually had quite a bit of our Mecca studs, so let's get into this week's Mecca studs.
Mega Studs.
Starting off with the highest scoring player of the week. This guy took his ball and went in the end zone anytime he wanted to. Josh Allen at 46.68 points, 217 passing yards, 40 rushing yards, threw 3 touchdown passes, and scored on the ground himself 3 times. Sean Tucker on someone's bench. Couldn't have played him here, but I think he's taking over for Rachaad White as Bernie had the sabotage drop. Sean Tucker, 33 points, 140 total yards, 2 catches, and 3 touchdowns. Christian McCaffrey was a stud today. We mentioned that the legacy players for San Francisco had their best games of the year with Brock Purdy back. 32.6 points for McCaffrey on 121 total yards, 5 receptions, and 3 touchdowns. Bryce Young with a career high. He had 31.92 points on 448 passing yards, 3 passing touchdowns, and a big 2-point conversion along in this game as well. And Travion Henderson on Thursday night at 29.8 points, 93 total yards, 5 receptions, and he got in the end zone 3 times. And King Tet. Tedero McMillan with a breakout game at 29 points, 130 receiving yards, 12 receptions, and 2 touchdowns, including a big touchdown towards the last minutes of the game for the Carolina Panthers.
Sorry, it got blue on one side, not on the other.
Yeah. Pick up from here, Bernie. You finish this off.
All right, Mr. Bijan Robinson.
Pardon me, would you have any Grey Poupon?
28.3 bottles of it, 143 total yards, 4 receptions, and 2 touchdowns for Bijan Robinson. Another running back on the list here, Kenneth Gainwell, was gaining very well. 26 fantasy points for Kenneth, 105 total yards, 7 receptions, and 2 touchdowns. And then Mr. Michael Wilson coming out of the blue. This guy was a streamer, from streamer to mecha stud here. 26 fantasy points for Michael Wilson, 185 receiving yards on 15 receptions. And then 2 kickers here, 2 game-winning field goal kickers. Will Lutz, 19 points for Will, 5 field goals, 1 point after, 150-plus yarder. And Cairo Santos, 18.3 fantasy points on 4 field goals, 1 point after, and 150-plus yard field goal. Great job getting your team to the win, Mr. Lutz and Mr. Santos.
Yeah, we had a lot of kickers with the game winners and a lot of kickers who could have had game winners. It kind of was on the kicker's shoulders or a foot. At least 7 or 8 different games, I think, came down to the kickers in the last minute or so. All right, guys, now it's time to get into this week's 2-point conversation.
Is Jack Del Rio going to go for 2 here,
He's
Link?
going for 2.
The Raiders will go for 2 and the probable victory with 47 seconds left.
If you don't make this, you lose. If you make it, you're in a position to win.
Wingman Fantasy Football's 2-point conversation.
And it's good! Oh my goodness!
All right, guys. The theme for this weekend's action, we had some windy games out there, which affected some of our play here. We had some buzzer game-winning field goals, like we mentioned, in the studs and duds here, and we had a ton of injuries. Although most of them, the severity right now, are in that 1 to 3 week range, and we're still gonna have to wait for some updates to note for sure. All right, Bernie, why don't you start us off with the games we're gonna break down in this week's 2-point conversation?
All right, let's go back a little bit here. Let's go to Thursday night, and we got the New York Jets at the Patriots here. The New England Patriots defeated the New York Jets for their eighth consecutive win, led by rookie Travion Henderson, who scored 3 touchdowns. The Patriots now have the NFL's best record and are guaranteed their first winning season since 2021. Despite throwing a touchdown pass to John Mechie III, Jets quarterback Justin Fields struggled through the air. The Jets had a chance late in the game, but were denied after a sack was nullified by a penalty, followed by an interception when safety Tony Adams collided with tight end Jeremy Ruckert. Drake May performed well for the Patriots, connecting with Stephon Diggs.
Yeah, this one was all about the Travion Henderson show. I mean, he had the breakout the week before against the Tampa Bay Bucks with 2 long runs. This one, he actually didn't have a lot of yards. He only had 62 yards rushing, but he scored. They gave him the ball. Not gave him the ball. He got the ball in the red zone there, and he scored 3 times, 2 on the ground, one with a big time push from his offensive lineman that just really picked him up and threw him in the end zone. The second touchdown was a great cut up with a couple cuts and made it through some arm tackles. And then he was like I don't even know what number of target, the third or fourth target on a short pass by Drake May, and he caught the touchdown in the back of the end zone. It really was the Drake May show. The thing here I wanted to notice, I didn't like it as a Drake May manager, but even with that being said, May was still awesome, except for he didn't get all the touchdowns he's been getting. It was the first game, I think, all year without having 2 touchdowns in a game. Passing, that is, but he still was like, you'll have the stats there, you can double check me, but he was like, 23 for 28 and 280 yards. I'm making up numbers a little bit, but in that range, he was just super efficient. He was the main guy moving the ball, but Travion Henderson was the main man scoring the ball.
Yeah, with a QBR of 83 points, you're very close, 25 of 34 with 281 total yards. So he's averaging 8.3 yards there on his passing. So he was very efficient, did a great job. He's a front runner for MVP candidate for this year.
I will say in that game, he was moving the ball easily, but it looked like there was a lot of space out there. Like when they were showing that the camera angle from behind the quarterback's head, he was just like lobbing balls into big gaps in the defense. So I don't want to, as well as he's been playing, and I want to give him the benefit of the doubt, I think a lot of quarterbacks could have carved up the Jets on that particular night.
Yes, probably. Okay, moving on.
Yep, fine with me. We don't need to talk no Jets here.
Yep, we're
no
gonna
Jets.
Yeah, we ain't talking no Jets here. All right, we're gonna move on to the Washington-Miami game here. The Miami Dolphins defeated the Washington Commanders in overtime in their first NFL regular season game played in Spain. Dolphins cornerback Jack Jones had a fitting celebration after his overtime interception, imitating Cristiano Ronaldo's signature pose that the soccer great used to perform at that very venue. Jones intercepted Marcus Mariota on the first offensive play in overtime, and Riley Patterson kicked a field goal to give the Dolphins the victory. Quarterback Tua Tagovailoa went without throwing any touchdowns or interceptions, while Mariota had a touchdown and a crucial interception in overtime. The Commanders had a chance to win in regulation, but Matt Gay's field goal attempt sailed wide right, and the Dolphins were stopped on the 4th and goal twice, including inside the final 2 minutes after recovering a muffed punt. So Commanders pretty much blew this one.
Yeah, this game, both my son and I are on different sides of the house. I recorded late into the morning, so I missed the first half, watched the second half. And this was the worst managed, in terms of just game situation managed coaching, I've ever seen on both sides. Just take the friggin' points. Both teams elected to go for it on 4th down inside the 5 over and over again, failing over and over again. You guys aren't good. The other team's not scoring. 3 points is worth a lot here, guys. I don't know what they're doing over and over again. They weren't going for the field goals. Miami could have won this game by 9 points. They could have lost it by 3, kind of thing, because no one was taking the points that were given to them. And like I said, there was no reason to be like, oh, we got to score a touchdown here. The other team's going to come back and score. No, they're not. At best, they're going to get a field goal. Just take your lead, especially the Dolphins at the end there with like 45 seconds left. Wouldn't kick the freaking field goal. What are you guys doing?
Yeah. Yeah, pretty much. This one was tough to watch. It could have been over a lot sooner. I don't know. It just shows that the coaches just didn't have confidence in their defenses, I guess. Is that what that says?
I would just say their offenses are so bad anyone can stop those guys at this point.
There you go. There you go. All right, moving on here.
Yep.
Let's get to Carolina at Atlanta. Bryce Young threw for 3 touchdowns without any interceptions, and Ryan Fitzgerald kicked a field goal in overtime to lift the Panthers to a win over the Falcons. Young fought through the first quarter pain in his right ankle and delivered the most passing yards in a game in Carolina's Panthers history,
Oh,
setting up a winning kick for Carolina, which completed its sweep of the divisional rival Atlanta. The Panthers rallied after trailing in the second quarter, with Young throwing a go-ahead touchdown pass to Tedero McMillan late in the game before Zane Gonzalez's kicked field goal to force overtime. Bijan, though, he ran for 2 touchdowns for the Falcons, but Atlanta could not overcome the strong performance from Young and the Panthers offense. The Panthers moved within 1/2 game of first place, Tampa Bay, in the division, following the Buccaneers' loss to Buffalo.
yeah. So we talked about this one a lot I think it was one of our preview games, or at least we mentioned it if it wasn't specifically that Atlanta was coming as a rematch from that disappointing 30-point shutout they had in week 3, and we're like, we're going to see what kind of team Atlanta is today, because that was embarrassing, and they need to win. So and we consider them arguably a better team. You would think so, but obviously it's not the case. But they did exactly what we thought in the first half. Bijan. He was tearing it up, getting he got 2 touchdowns, the first 2 touchdowns, and then they even let Tyler Algier get one. So it was all rushing touchdowns. They had 3 in the first half, and it looked like they were going to do what we thought they were going to do. And then they did what so many teams were doing early in the year. They scored their 3 touchdowns, and they're like, we're done. They didn't score at all the rest of the game until that late field goal. Maybe there was 2 field goals maybe in the second half. I'm not sure if there was 2 or 1. But nonetheless, they stopped scoring touchdowns when they were scoring on almost every drive. Penix did leave the game here. We did have Cousins come in, and at that point I was watching the game. I didn't think Cousins looked particularly bad. He moved them in to get that game tying field goal with not a lot of time left. So that was a pretty good fourth quarter drive by Cousins. He didn't turn the ball over. I didn't see any bad sacks. I didn't see every single play. But even they were holding on to that lead in the middle of the fourth quarter. And Tedero McMillan was the man, mixed in with Rico Dowdle, had a little bit of a slower game, but had some big runs to get him in to those last scoring drives there. Barely stepped out of bounds on what would have been the go-ahead touchdown with a couple minutes to go, but they ended up capping that off with a Tedero McMillan touchdown instead. So a strong showing here by Carolina, taking the punch on the road, coming back, and really by the end showed that they were the stronger team if you count all 68 minutes, whatever it was.
Yeah, and then let's just not forget about Xavier Legette. He only had 4 receptions, but they were 83 yards. So a great 20 point average there for Xavier Legette. Yeah, this was tough. At least Atlanta scored. That's all I got to say.
And the biggest news here, I guess, is that right now they're saying they're expecting Penix to miss some time. So Cousins will be the starter, assuming at this point for the next week, 2-3 weeks. So just keep that in mind. He had 1 start this year and it was awful, but maybe second time around might do a little better. It's hard to say at this point. But Drake London, we also keep an eye on that. He might be out 1 or 2, 3 weeks as well. And that's probably arguably their best player, if not for sure their second best player.
Yeah, by far, yes. All right, moving on here. Speaking of the aforementioned Buffalo Bills, Tampa Bay Buccaneers at Buffalo, Josh Allen threw 3 touchdown passes and ran for 3 scores to lead the Bills over the Buccaneers. Allen brought the Bills offense out of a month-long slump, overcoming an early interception with a strong performance that included his legs scoring 3 times. The reigning MVP worked with the retooled receiver group, like you said earlier, featuring big game Gabe Davis and Mecole Hardman, making their season debuts in the back and forth game with, I think it was 9, but multiple lead changes. Baker Mayfield threw a touchdown pass to Sean Tucker, but also threw an interception and lost a fumble when sacked on Tampa Bay's final drive. So the Buccaneers let the NFC South lead dwindle to a half game after the Carolina beat Atlanta.
Yeah, it seemed like once they got a couple drives in, it seemed like Buffalo was scoring every time. But you looked up and the Tampa Bay was always within a score. They would always kind of answer. It seemed like they were kind of trading 10 points or 8 points. It's like almost a basketball game trading 3-pointers for 2-pointers. Both teams are scoring every time down, but by the end you're like, oh, we're down by 10 points, and that's kind of how this one finished up here. Again, with a big turnover in the fourth quarter by Baker Mayfield, but the running game, we said it with the wind. This was a Sunday morning quickie. We mentioned that the wind on this one was going to be pretty bad. I don't know if that's what made them change their strategy here, but both teams got running the ball here, especially the Tampa Bay Bucks, who were able to accommodate. Rashad White didn't do awful, but Sean Tucker I was looking at the stats here. They were both had about 9 carries somewhere in the middle of the second quarter, and by the end it was like Sean Tucker with like 19 carries to Rashad White's like 11. Like at a certain point, they just said, Tucker, you're the man. So this might be a changing of the guard. I don't know if it was just a hot hand thing, but keep that in mind. We've been mentioning it for weeks. Rashad White's kind of capped at that 65 yards. And Sean Tucker really did deliver in terms of being a punishing back, both in the passing game. Like you said, he had a long receiving touchdown and a long rushing touchdown as well today. So I can't promise you he's going to be the starter. Bucky Irving, we thought was close to playing. So again, that's going to be a big mess going into this week, who's available or not. They might all three be healthy. We don't know which one's going to be the main guy. But Sean Tucker showed he can do it in a big time matchup today.
Yeah. But Sean Tucker's not a young, spry running back. He's got some mileage on him, so just be wary of that as well.
Yep.
Okay, moving on here. What's our next game up here? I'm sorry. Texas. It's a Texas game, right? Oh yes, the Houston Texans at the Tennessee Titans here. Davis Mills led the Texans to a win over the Titans on Kamani Fairbairn's game-ending field goal.
It wasn't Fairbairn, it was Matthew Wright. Matthew Wright.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yep, that's fine.
Matthew Wright's game-winning field goal. That's why I didn't know what team he was on. Sweeping the season series with the AFC South rivals, led by backup quarterback Bills, filling in for CJ Stroud. The Texans reached the milestone for the first time this season with their 3rd win in 4 games and their 5th straight win over the Titans in Nashville. Rookie Cam Ward made a thrilling finish by driving the Titans late in the 4th quarter and capping the drive with a touchdown pass to Van Jefferson, with interim coach Mike McCoy going for the tie as Joey Sly kicked the extra point. Mills easily moved the Texans into position to end it, though, with a big play being a completion to Nico Collins on 3rd down. The Texans sacked Ward 3 times, and Will Anderson Jr. also recovered a fumble he stripped from the rookie.
Will Anderson is very good, man. He's very good. he gets a big play every game, it seems like. This is not the first time we've seen this. I think Tennessee did it to the Chargers a couple weeks back, even though the Chargers were able to pull away a little more than this game was. They'll get the first score sometimes, and they'll keep it close, and you're like, all right, we're getting to the 3rd quarter, and we're either down 3, up 3, it's a one-score game one way or the other. Of course, Tennessee doesn't have the experience or the quality of talent to hold on, but they make the teams fight here. Woody Marks got a majority of the work here. Looked okay, not great, to be honest with you. But Chubb didn't touch the ball at all. I think maybe one catch. There might have a penalty on the catch he had. Now that I'm thinking about it, he had but he only had 3 carries. But Davis Mills, they didn't score a lot of points. Sorry, they didn't score a lot of points. Did Houston as this was a low-scoring game? But Davis Mills knows where to go. He throws that ball to Nico Collins over and over again. I like to see that, as this is back-to-back games with Nico Collins being a top performer, a stud with Davis Mills. Maybe CJ Stroud can learn something, as the only offensive touchdown for the Texans went to Nico Collins, and he's just so big, so strong. You can just throw it anywhere, and he just reaches up and grabs it, and he can take the hit. He took some big hits on his catches, and I was nervous just watching the hits, but he gets up and he does whatever celebration he's going to do. I'm like, oh, I guess he's good. He's just a tank out there, and give that man the ball, especially with this running game not being a super strong part of the team for the Texans. Change of pace at best. Stick with your guns here. Stick with Nico Collins, and even I forget his first, Jaden Higgins. He's a big boy as well. He's a big guy out there. They had a couple big receivers running around out there.
You got 10 targets for Nico. Dalton Schultz actually had the 9 targets, and like you said, Higgins had 7 targets. That was their top 3 targeted receivers for this game. So, follow suit. Davis Mills, you're not doing a bad job, buddy. Keep it up.
While we're here, because we're kind of we say this conversation, and we rarely do. I have a quick question for you. With Cam Ward is not. It's a tough situation, so let's just start with that. Obviously, he's not looking great. Like a lot of times, his mechanics are bad. He's sailing balls on guys that are open when they are. Sometimes, he's getting sacked a lot. Again, not of all his fault, but it's all. He's not exempt from any blame here. If they fall into a top 3 pick again, obviously depends on which quarterback. Are they looking to do draft another quarterback? Would you ride with Cam Ward for another year to see where you're at?
Well, they got rid of the coach, right?
Right.
So is the GM going to stay? Is this the quarterback that this GM picked?
Right.
Those are the kind of questions that kind of come into play. Can you find a coach that says, no, Cam Ward is good? It's like, you guys did a good job scouting him. You did a great job picking him. He was first overall pick, right?
Yeah.
So I don't think Cam Ward's a bust after this season. I think the Titans are a dumpster fire. I mean, you do have Calvin Ridley, or you had Calvin Ridley,
Right.
but that's it. Like Chigakonkwo, Tyjae Spears, these are the receivers. Van Jefferson, Gunnar Helm, Chimera Dike, Alec Jeremiah, but who's a rook. Like, you don't have a good receiving core at all. So it's hard. It's hard for that. You do have Tony Pollard, but that's not a great. Tony Pollard and Tyjae Spears aren't a great backfield either. So he just didn't have anything around him, and then he's in flux with his coach this year. So I would say no, you don't. But if you get rid of the GM at the end of the year, maybe the GM comes in and says, no, I'm going to bring in my quarterback and my coach.
I would say one part of this is that there's not any super prospects coming out in terms of quarterbacks out of college. If there was like one of those surefire, guys that everyone's talking about, whether you're right or wrong, maybe. But I would use those picks on the offensive line right now, because your best players, like you said, they're not great, but they are your best players, are your running backs. I would just get offensive line. Let them get some time to see these grow these young receivers, and even the offensive line might be able to help that running game, because their defense is okay. They kind of they're kept in these games for a little bit, not every game, but at least every other game you're like, oh, this is like a 10-13 game, and then they get sacked 3 times in the beginning of the fourth quarter, and then they lose by 10.
Yeah. So I'm not going to blame Cam Ward or anybody else on Tennessee right now. Let them get their organizational stuff together first.
All right, fair enough.
All right. Next up, we have Chicago at Minnesota. The Chicago Bears beat the Minnesota Vikings with a game-ending field goal set up by Devin Duvernay's kickoff return in the final minute. Duvernay's return set up the Cairo Santos for his 4th field goal of the game as time expired, giving the Bears a victory after Vikings scored the go-ahead touchdown. Safety Kevin Beard had one of 2 interceptions of J.J. McCarthy as Chicago pushed their leading turnover margin against 6 giveaways. After McCarthy ended another erratic performance with 5 straight completions, Duvernay delivered the clutch response after the Bears blew the lead they took into the fourth quarter. The defense kept the Vikings in it the whole way, limiting the Bears to multiple third down conversions, but the final possession started too deep in their territory to prevent a score.
Yeah, we mentioned this going into this game, that we have the inconsistency of the Bears versus the meh of the Vikings, and it was one of those things like we were talking about. Who do we start, Caleb Williams or McCarthy? It's like, you could, if you're optimistic, you play Caleb. You should really never play McCarthy, although he has that floor of the rushing game. They both played awful today. McCarthy is always due for a combination. If you want to, there should be like an over/under on sacks turnover combo. He's good for about 6 every week with 2 interceptions and 4 sacks, give or take. You know what I mean? And a fumble mixed in there. He's making mistakes all the time. Again, young player. I think they thought he's better than he was. He's not really getting the balls to the receivers. The running game's not getting going either. The defense is doing good to keep these guys in the game, but they're just not scoring points. And they've got a lot of big-time offensive players on there with Aaron Jones and Justin Jefferson, even Jordan Addison. So it's kind of does come down to the quarterback. Again, being that he's so young, I'm not going to say he's awful about it, but he's not the reason. He's not helping the cause, let's put it that way. And Caleb Williams played down to his competition, it seemed like. Although I will say DeAndre Swift had a couple penalties called back, but he looked good today in terms of just like how he was running. If he would have had 1 or 2 more first downs, the Bears could have put this one away and kept the ball out of McCarthy's hand for that last go-ahead drive. But when it came down to it, the Bears came back and won. It was funny. They're like, whatever the number, like Bears had the most all-time fourth quarter comebacks in the last 2 minutes or something like that, like in history. So it's like since 1966 or something. I don't know what it was. Some random stat. I'm like, does it count if you give away the lead with 3 minutes to go? Like, I don't think that's a comeback. That's a blown lead that you saved here at the end. So it was a comeback. This was a really ugly game in terms of offense, though, for fantasy especially.
Yeah, and let's not say that JJ McCarthy was bad by himself here. And like you pretty much said it. Did Caleb play down to his level? Yes, they had the exact same stat line.
Yeah.
16 of 32, both of them.
Wow.
Yeah, 193 for Caleb and 150 yards for JJ McCarthy. The kicker was the two interceptions because Caleb didn't throw a touchdown. At least McCarthy threw a touchdown. And McCarthy had the two interceptions. Caleb didn't. So it's not like it's not like the quarterbacks won or lost this game for their teams. There's a lot of other things going on, factors going on.
Yeah.
The rushing was probably a big factor as well in this game.
This was a big game, though. We had like, as I was breaking down the Sunday morning quickie, there were like 6 divisional games today, and a lot of them were those teams that were kind of in the middle that a win or loss would really change the trajectory of their season. Vikings are trying to come back and get back into that top echelon of teams here, and Chicago had that big winning streak and it's been kind of 500 since then. But with every win that they get, they're getting just close. You know, you need at least 9 wins to consider yourself a chance for the playoffs. No guarantee. But with each one of these sneaky wins they're getting now, they're like, oh, we're only 1 game away from that. They're getting, or they're inching their way into the strong in the hunt, if not playoff consideration, are the Bears with this win, and the Vikings with this loss are starting to look like they're on the outside looking in.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, next game we have up here, Green Bay at the Giants. Jordan Love threw 2 touchdown passes as the Packers beat the Giants to end their skid. Returning after taking a big hit to his left shoulder, Love had Malik Willis filling in for a while he was evaluated, and Willis didn't look that bad. The Packers ended their losing streak by defeating the Giants, though, so that's always a good thing. Green Bay scored more points than the previous 2 weeks combined to get this job done here. Love provided heroics with a go-ahead drive in the fourth quarter, connecting with rookie Savion Williams and finding Christian Watson in the end zone to take the lead. Love threw touchdown passes to Josh White and Watson while on target all afternoon, with several drops making his numbers look worse and threatening than they really were here. Lucas Haversick took over. Took over the kicking duties, and was wide right on his first extra point attempt and wide left on his third. As the Packers led the league with multiple missed kicks, including field goals.
Yeah, I was saying, this is the first time Haversick's been missing, but this is one of those windy games, I believe. I think I mentioned that in the Sunday morning quickie, like both for Koo, who's going to be the kicker now, and Haversick. We had 2 kind of not new kickers. They both kicked at some point during the year, but it's like this is not a game you want to play due to the conditions. I'm not sure if that's why they missed or not, but nonetheless, it's just they did miss and the conditions were bad. You had Jameis Winston as the star of the week. I'm not sure his final stats, but he did pretty good until the end there. Didn't have that one interception. So I think he had a fumble. Because I had the Green Bay defense. The Green Bay defense had 0 points until about 5 minutes to go. Then they finally got like 2 sacks and an interception towards the end of the game. So Winston was keeping them in this game. They hit the rookie you were talking about. They brought up from the practice squad, Hodgkins. You have his name there, right? What is it?
Isaiah Hodgkins.
Yeah, he was doing pretty well in a low scoring game. And Theo Johnson. We mentioned him on the dud list, but he was the other main target as I was watching it anyway. At the moments I was watching, Winston did pretty good. He was doing that thing where he's getting the ball out quick, so they weren't getting to him in terms of pressure. We've noticed a lot of quarterbacks. That's a good way to do it. Just drop back, pick your guy, throw it, which I guess Winston's kind of good at. Green Bay had opportunities for interceptions, but they didn't get one until the game sealing one at the end of the game there. Winston looked better than Russell Wilson, that's for sure. They kept him in this game. Just the loss of Jacobs is going to hang heavy over this week here. We're not sure how much time he's going to miss, if any. I would assume at this point 1 to 2 weeks. As a fantasy manager, I had Emmanuel Wilson on my team for 3 weeks, not hoping for an injury, but if it happened to have the backup, now he's out there, guys. He might be the highest price acquisition. We'll get into that in some of our waiver wire targets. But the Green Bay Packers needed this win, and they got it, and the Giants are really just playing for a high draft pick anyway. So it kind of went the way it should go.
Yeah, it did. There was a couple of missteps for the Giants. I saw a couple of Jameis's throws that were not caught, and it wasn't entirely his fault. Good defensive plays, slipping by the receivers, It was okay. And on the other side, though, Romeo Dobbs was poised to have a huge game, and he had 2 huge drops in this game. Um, so Christian Watson was the beneficiary of Romeo Dobbs not showing up to catch the ball today.
You know what's actually really interesting about this, now that I'm thinking about it here? So we had, uh, 2 years ago, if you wanna include this one, we had Jordan Love with his breakout season, getting the
Mhm.
Packers to the playoffs. He was like a number 6 fantasy quarterback that year. So he was really good, and then they brought Jacobs in, and they just went to Jacobs all the time, and it worked. So, this is NFL versus fantasy. No problem here. Um, with Jacobs being out for a lot of this game, we saw what Jordan Love can do with those not like ball hog receivers, as he has a lot of like quality guys, and he can throw the ball. Especially this is a decent matchup here, of course. But don't be surprised if Jordan Love is going to be a very startable quarterback, which he has not been this year, except for 1 or 2 times. He's going to be a startable quarterback if Jacobs is out. And any of those receivers, again, it's going to be a little bit of a Russian roulette with which receiver. As you said, you thought Dobbs might be the one who should perform, but Christian Watson had a big game today. So
Yeah.
it's kind of pick your poison. But that passing game is going to increase if Jacobs misses any time. And watching that game, I thought Love was out of the game when he led to the locker room early in the late in the first quarter. I thought he was done. I was like, oh no, we got a manager who's going to have a dud this week. And all of a sudden he was back in. As then he finished the game strong in the second half. And like you said it right, Malik, what's his last name?
Willis.
Sorry, Malik Willis. I don't know if they scored a field goal on that drive or a touchdown, but the one drive he came in, he drove down to the red zone. I don't know how it ended because I was kind of flipping around. But Malik Willis kept him afloat while he was out, and then Jordan Love came back and he was balling in that second half.
Yeah. So it was good. The only issue I have with Green Bay's passing attack is that in order for them to actually be successful, those receivers have to catch the ball, but they're either downfield or they're running the ball. So, like you're saying, without Josh Jacobs there, it might help keep going for it. Like he's like a big swing kind of guy.
Yeah,
And that's tough when fantasy because the lack of consistency there. Like you're
right.
going in expecting 20 points out of your quarterback, and you're getting 15 and 12 points out of your quarterback. That's tough, man. Especially come closer to the playoff time here.
And we were excited, not excited. Bernie was excited. I was interested in seeing what Winston would do, but
Yeah.
we have to mention the running game for the Giants here. As Jackson
Yeah.
Dart is kind of the secondary running back here. We mentioned Singletary as a stud this week because he had 2 touchdowns, but Tyrone Tracy looked really good today as well in his carries. I think he got close to 100 yards. You could double check me on the stats there, but both running backs
19
had
of 88.
88. Okay, both running backs did pretty well today against a very strong defense. So Green Bay's been stopping a lot of running attacks, and the Giants had whatever the combination was, 150 yards on the ground there with 2 touchdowns between 2 running backs, give or take. So I'd be remiss if I didn't say a good showing by both those running backs. But even though Tyrone Tracy wasn't the stud, I thought he looked pretty well in terms of running the ball today.
Yeah. And let's not take anything away from the New York Giants trying their best because this is supposed to be a shutdown defense, right?
Yeah.
And they 7 points. So okay. All right, enough about this game.
Yep.
Let's move on to the next less exciting game. Cincinnati at Pittsburgh. The Pittsburgh Steelers ran past the Cincinnati Bengals, but lost quarterback Aaron Rodgers to a left wrist injury in the second half. Mason Rudolph guided a pair of long scoring drives after replacing the injured Rodgers. And the Steelers surged past the Bengals to remain atop of the AFC North. Well, there was a Jalen Ramsey incident with Jamar Chase, and I'll let you talk about that. But Rodgers injured his wrist on his non-throwing hand at some point in the second quarter. So it's exactly unclear how much it's hurt, how long he's going to miss, if he's going to miss anything. Safety Kyle Duggar intercepted Joe Flacco and returned it for a game turning pick 6 in the third quarter, while cornerback James Pierre added a scoop and score late in the fourth. Pittsburgh tight end Darnell Washington gave the Steelers a jolt by finishing with 4 receptions, including a catch and run in the second quarter, in which he stiff-armed one defender to the ground and ran over 2 others. So let's not sleep on Darnell Washington.
Yeah, so Joe Flacco's been banged up for the last 2 or 3 weeks. The one week where he had his most passing yards ever was one where we weren't sure if he was going to play, and he had his, like I said, his greatest game in terms of passing yards. This week he was banged up during the middle of the week, and they're like, well, oh, Joel's just going to do it. He did not look comfortable several times today, and it showed up in his fantasy output, having big time turnovers, which really changed the tide here, as you mentioned there. And like you said, it was the running attack. I had Jalen Warren as start of the week here. He came out of the gates on fire with about 40 yards in that first drive, but then Kenneth Gainwell capped off the drive with a touchdown. And then with Jalen Warren getting banged up, they just kept on doing the running game here and the short yardage passing. But Gainwell was the biggest recipient here in terms of definitely getting in the end zone. We mentioned it, you want to play as many offensive players as you can against the Cincinnati Bengals, but this time it was the running game. No tight ends that I noticed had any big breakout games for the Steelers. But that, again, missing Aaron Rodgers there. I think he got hurt like on the last play of the first half. It was, or his last throw anyway. I think he got, it was throwing it towards the end zone, felt like kind of got pushed down and fell on his hand. And when he got up, he was holding it. And then he pretty much went to the locker room, but it was as the team was going in for halftime. So it was one of the last plays of the first half. I thought he was going to be not okay, but it's his non-throwing hand. So I think it's going to be pretty bad if he didn't play today. You'd think they'd tape him up, do those reverse handoffs. So I'm thinking it's probably something significant. I don't want to call serious. It's a wrist. So it's not like a torn knee or anything, but there could be some damage in there where he's not going to be able to play.
Yeah, and he's old. And he's the guy that doesn't even line up for their little tush push. He just kind of stands, 10 yards back with his hands on his hips. So fragile would be an understatement for Aaron Rodgers at this point in his career.
And then I realized the last time these guys played about, 4 weeks ago on that Thursday night, which was an epic battle where both teams were going back and forth. That was I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that was the game with the combined oldest age of starting quarterbacks. And they just beat it because now they're 3 weeks older than they were last time they played. So they are once again the oldest combination of quarterbacks to play at the same time.
Yeah. Okay. And let's not sleep on DK Metcalf here. He had 8 targets, 5 receptions for 49 yards, a long of 17. So he just couldn't get into the end zone. It's one of those things. Kenneth Gainwell and Darnell Washington kind of took over the receiving core here, but it could have been DK, and then that trade would have looked really, really bad.
Well, right now, as we mentioned it, Henry and James Cook were about a quarter of a point away from each other. So DK was the throw-in. And he did exactly what he's been doing all year, getting about that 45 yards. And if he scores, it's 13 points. If he doesn't, he sits there at 5. So it's he did exactly what everyone did what they were supposed to do in terms of that trade. Everyone scored what they were supposed to score.
There you go. All right. Next up, your game that you've been waiting for. The Jacksonville Jaguars rebounded from a historic loss with a dominant win against the Los Angeles Chargers behind rushing touchdowns from Travis Etienne, Lawrence, and rookie Bashal Tutin. Coming off a debacle at Houston in the fourth quarter, the Jaguars showed no lingering effects from that crushing setback against the division rival. Jacksonville's defensive end Josh Hines Allen broke a franchise sack record that stood for more than 2 decades when he took down Justin Herbert in the second quarter. Lawrence's touchdown pass to Tim Patrick in the fourth gave Jacksonville more cushion than it had against the Texans. And Etienne's second touchdown run of the game returned an intercept, blah, 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 blah. And Etienne's second touchdown run of the game returned an... Okay, I'm just going to skip that sentence.
Okay.
Herbert pulled...
Yeah, that sentence kicked your butt, man. You lost. Lost.
Yeah. Justin Herbert, with the game out of reach, turning to backup Trey Lance for the final minutes as the Chargers had little room to run and no time to pass.
It wasn't just the final minutes. They put him in with about 13 minutes left in that game. And they were warming him up prior to that. They knew they were going. This game was out of reach. Jacksonville just put it on them. They're like, we're not going to. All the talk about Trevor Lawrence, is it good or not? They're like, you know what? We realize he's not good. We're not going to let him do this. We're just going to hand the ball off over and over and over and over again, switching back and forth between Etienne and Bashal Tutin, and they were hammering the ball. 8 yards, 8 yards almost every other time with some other big plays mixed in. Kamani Vidal, he's on that every other schedule right now. I should have known. He sorry. This is not unfamiliar. We've seen this it seems like once a year where the Chargers go East Coast. Usually it's to the Dolphins where they don't show up and get shut out. This time was to Jacksonville.
Yeah.
So this is not out of their characteristic to have at least one out of two of their East Coast games be they get destroyed. But Kamani Vidal got banged up early in this game, which really put me on a sour note. I thought he was out for the game just by the way they were hemming and hawing and looking at him. He injured his thigh. I'm not sure exactly what it was, but he got back on the field and he was doing his best. They weren't giving the ball at that point because he was banged up and they were down by so much they had to pass. But Herbert was just getting harassed. He took one or two big hits early, and he's a big tough guy, but he does seem to show his discomfort when he gets tackled heavy sometimes. Maybe they're really big heavy hits, and anyone I'd feel pain obviously, but he comes up and he'll be ranking his shoulder a little bit or looking at his ankle. So he was slowed down after that big hit he took in the first half. And then Vidal came back in, so I was excited about that. And then Herbert threw an interception where Vidal was the one who ran back 50 yards to chase the guy down. And then when he chased him down, he laid back on the ground. I'm like, oh, you're already hurt. Don't overexert tackling a guy on a interception. But he saved a touchdown, so he used his last bit of gasp of effort to save a touchdown that Herbert threw there. But again, this was just out of reach as both teams turned to their backups, especially the Chargers early in the fourth quarter. And good on Jacksonville. They just, like I said, realize your strengths, minimize your weaknesses, and just pound. And that's what they did today to the Chargers.
Yeah, and you're not even joking. Team rushing for Jacksonville was 192 total yards. Team rushing for LA was 42 total yards. So
Yeah.
it wasn't even a contest there. All right. Moving on. Oh, and one more thing. I think Trevor Lawrence is good. Okay, one more thing here. Seattle at the LA Rams. The Los Angeles Rams defeated the Seattle Seahawks in a divisional matchup. Matthew Stafford threw multiple touchdown passes to lead the Rams offense to victory over the NFC West rivals. The Rams defense made key stops throughout the game to contain Seattle's offense and secure the win. Sam Darnold threw I think four interception.
Four interceptions today. Yeah, he was awful.
Yeah. So it really was just the defensive prowess of the Los Angeles Rams and the setback of Sam Darnold that cost them this game.
We mentioned this going in. This could go. These teams are evenly matched. This could go either way. It could be a shootout. They both have good defenses. They both have good offenses. How was it going to go? And it kind of went both ways at different parts of the game as the Seattle defense really kept them in it after those 4 turnovers. And so they really minimized the bleeding considering how that game was going. Kenneth Walker was doing okay. I was looking at him. I was like, oh, maybe I can make a trade for him still as he had like 50 yards on 13 carries, was doing good. And then he broke out that last quarter with a big couple plays and a touchdown to get him back into the game here. But they left too much time no, that was the other way around. I'm sorry. The LA scored late, and then a big drive actually by Sam Darnold to get him into a long field goal range at the end for a chance to win it as they were down by 2 points, right? It was 21-19 or 2019, something like that, right? Yeah.
21-19, yep.
So Jason Myers, I never realized that he was a horror villain. That's upsetting me that I didn't realize that till now. Thank you. Jason Myers was awesome all day, but missed the last kick that would have had a chance to have a big not upset, but a big win for the Seattle Seahawks. So these guys are evenly matched going in. Showed parts of they were well-rounded in parts of their game. Sometimes the defense beat the other team's offense. Sometimes the offense beat the other team's defense. It was back and forth in that regard. Came down to a kick, and he just missed. And the Rams were able to get another victory in this one. And once again, Devontae Adams gets a goal line touchdown. This guy with his 17th touchdown this year has been amazing, especially in the red zone.
Yeah. This was a fun game to watch. But the better team won today. Seattle. I wouldn't take anything away from Seattle's team, though. Sometimes your quarterback just has an off day, and today was that day for Sam, and he's going to be just fine. And Matthew Stafford, he is also in the MVP conversation here. He did not play like that the first half, but he got his team over the edge. So I think he didn't lose any ground on Drake May.
Yeah, both quarterbacks had clutch drives in the fourth quarter, set up their team the best they could with the time they had left in the game. It just came down to that kick at the end.
Yeah, we'll see these teams again in the playoffs, so it'll be good. All All right, next up, we got San Francisco at Arizona. Brock Purdy threw 3 touchdown passes in his return from a toe injury as the San Francisco 49ers beat the Arizona Cardinals. Christian McCaffrey had 2 rushing touchdowns and a receiving score, while tight end George Kittle caught 2 touchdown passes from Purdy. McCaffrey extended his NFL record with at least 1 running touchdown and 1 touchdown catch in the same game. It was all good. Let's see here. Jacoby Brissett started his 5th straight game, completed multiple passes for 2 touchdowns, but 2 interceptions, while tight end Trey McBride had a big receiving game with a touchdown. The Cardinals were called. Oh man, whoever wrote this is an idiot. Oh, that's me. The Cardinals were called for a franchise record number of penalties. I wrote it right. I just can't say it right. Which was also the most from any team in the NFL season, including multiple in the first half that tied for the most before halftime for any team in 2 decades.
All right.
Penalties.
Yeah. So this game ended up being a blowout. I'm going to say it right here.
Yeah.
Jacoby Brissett is doing his best Jameis Winston impersonation from years past. Turns the ball over in the first couple drives to get behind so he can throw. It's ridiculous. It's 2 games in a row where the other teams has gotten I don't know if they scored a touchdown on or not, but nonetheless, they set themselves back due to the quarterback's errors early in the game, and San Francisco just took off, never looked back. However, there are a couple of notes we have to mention here. Michael Wilson, we mentioned him as a free agent pickup here, a waiver wire pickup here with Zay Jones being out and Marvin Harrison being out this week, had 185 yards on 15 catches. He has the most receiving yards in a single game this year, surpassing Puka Nakua's 170 from earlier in the season. So this guy who's been the 3rd receiver all year long, and being that that's not a prolific passing attack, pretty much got promoted 2 spots to number 1, and being that they were down and had to score over and over again due to the early turnovers and penalties, as Bernie mentioned here, they were throwing the ball the entire game, and Michael Wilson was a big-time benefactor of that. Not sure if Marvin Harrison is going to be playing next game, although I did see him on the sideline today, so he had that emergency surgery, but he didn't keep him from being at the stadium today. I found that encouraging, I guess. But we no matter how this game went, San Francisco blew him out. Went to the legacy guys, like we said, Kittle and McCaffrey were the guys scoring the touchdowns. But Michael Wilson had a day today. And Brissett, he's not going to win you football games, but he might win you some fantasy games here. Once again, scoring 26 points. He's in all 5 starts, he's had at least 24 points in terms of fantasy. So perfect. He's a self-saboteur for the team and a benefactor for fantasy. Put him in your lineups.
There you go. It was nice to see San Francisco with healthy people and winning. So it's good when the 49ers are a good team.
I've been holding on to Brandon Ayuk all year. Do you think Brandon Ayuk can be a part of this in a couple weeks?
No, I think Brandon Ayuk throws a wrench in everything, and then nobody's getting any fantasy value. So he could just stay where he is. No, Brandon Ayuk is a good player, and the offense will be even more dangerous when he does come back. So as long as Brock Purdy can stay healthy. The other big note here I want to say about San Francisco is now that you've got some more players back, take it easy on Christian McCaffrey, which they did. He only had 6 receptions and he only had 13 carries. So that's good. We don't want to burn him out. He's the one bright spot that hasn't been injured yet this year.
All right. Oh, wait, one more thing. Baltimore. Sorry. You mentioned it. Just because I was doing the studs and duds. Trey McBride, this is at least the 2nd consecutive week where he had over 20 points in terms of fantasy. So he was the top non-quarterback in the regular stud section for the 2nd straight week. So Trey McBride has been awesome.
Yes, always will be. He's alive. All right, next up, Baltimore at Cleveland. Mark Andrews' late touchdown lifted the Baltimore Ravens to a win over the Cleveland Browns and spoiled Shedeur Sanders' NFL debut. You know what? I'm not going to read anything that I have here. I'm just going to say this. I watched some of this game because I had 2 players playing in this game. Shedeur Sanders started off great. Two completions. His first 2 passes were completions. Then there was intentional grounding. There was just bad passes, bad decisions. He did rush a little bit. And I think that's like the default for this generation's quarterback when they know that they can't execute the passing game, they're just going to start taking off and running the ball, which is fine. But you're not that guy yet. It's you gotta earn your way to just start rushing the ball because this is not college. You're going to get laid out. I'm not excited for Shador Sanders. I don't think they're game planning for him properly. I think there's a reason why was the third string. And they really think that the Browns are in trouble if Dylan Gabriel doesn't come back.
Yeah, I'm gonna piggyback on this a little bit. Before I get to that sentiment, let me just start with a little bit of the game here. So Cleveland was up for most of this game. They were up 16-10 going into halftime, and it stayed that same score into the fourth quarter, really, until a couple field goals tied it up at 16-16. And then you mentioned the late touchdown by Mark Andrews was a fake tush push. They had him line up under center. He grabbed the snap and then spun out and rolled out to the right and ran down pretty much untouched. And for, I don't know how long the run was. It wasn't short. It was like, 23 yards, give or take, something like that.
That was a 35-yard rush.
35,
yeah.
It wasn't a short
run. That was
run.
his first career rushing touchdown.
So that was a neat play. That's why one of the reasons why Lamar Jackson didn't have any stats today, that they didn't score any touchdowns. They had a rushing touchdown by Henry and a rushing touchdown by Andrews, and the rest were field goals as I see it here. But now to get back to the Shador thing, I'm not a hater one way or the other. I saw him play a little bit in college, didn't really have an opinion. I've heard all the talk, so I'm not coming to this at like team Shador, team Gabriel. I think Gabriel is not good at this point, but I think he's better. Let's put it that way. And he's showing it at least. But I will say this. This is what I have noticed from Shador in terms of his gameplay, nothing more. When he takes sacks, he runs backwards forever. I was looking at the game here. The first set, the stats, he came in, he was like 2 for 4 or whatever it was for 30 yards. I'm like, all right, similar pace to what Gabriel was doing if you just want to compare the same guys in the same game here. But then he took a sack, and it was like an 18-yard sack because he just keeps thinking he's doing what Bo Nix did early in last year. We're like, I'm just going to keep running. They'll never get me. These guys are faster than you, man. They will get you unless you have a crazy spin-out move or something. You can't just hold on the ball and expect the situation to get better because you're holding on to it. These guys are going to track you down, and going backwards is just buying time but not helping your team out. So a couple big sacks, like you said, and then he gets in trouble and just throws it away. So I'm not saying he can't be better. I'm just saying what he's doing on the field. Again, this is not a hater situation, but his mistakes are like double mistakes. It's like Will Levis mistakes. You can throw it out of bounds, or you can run around for 10 seconds and throw it off someone's helmet. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, what are you going to do?
Exactly. And all I have to say is that the Cleveland Browns, their team messed up. The general manager messed up. The front office messed up. Your two quarterbacks are Dylan Gabriel and Shador Sanders. Like, where is the veteran?
Where's the Joe Flacco
leadership? Yeah. Like what are you guys thinking? It's already a cluster up there.
Yeah.
And you're not going to win like that, and you're going to ruin people's careers. So Shador Sanders has two ways he can go. As I look at it, he can go the Johnny Football way, or he can go the
who
what's his name over in Tampa? I can't forget. Oh, Baker.
Baker Mayfield.
Baker
Okay, okay.
Put your head down, do the work, and just, it's okay. Cleveland is going to ruin you. Don't let them ruin you.
Or even if he stays with Cleveland, you can even say the not as good as Baker Mayfield. That's a huge change. But even like the Bryce Young way, where he was so bad and he's like slowly getting a little bit better and a little more comfortable and having a big game today.
Yeah, exactly. But he's got Andy Dalton there. Not that Andy Dalton is currently good, right? But Andy Dalton he's a seasoned veteran and he knows what he's doing. Yeah, so it's like one of those things. So
we would be remiss if we didn't mention that this game was close because of Cleveland's defense. Once again, Myles Garrett. I don't know how many sacks he had today, but with the sacks. 5 again. I thought it was 4 when I saw at one point. Like, that can't be right.
Maybe it's 4. Maybe it's 4. Yeah.
Either way, I was at one point, so maybe he got to 5. But it feels like these are team sacks. Like Cleveland has 5 sacks today. Nope, it's not all Myles Garrett. Other people getting sacks, but he's getting that number to start with. It's amazing. I forget the number here. You might have it. It's like whatever number of years in a row with at least 12 sacks in a season. He has now tied or broken the record of Lawrence Taylor to have probably 8 seasons in a row with 12 sacks. You might have it there, whatever it is, but he's just he's getting multiple sacks every single week. It's amazing. And honestly, the Browns had a really good chance to win this game. They were, like I said, they were up 16-10 at halftime. Then they were up. It was tied 16-16 with like 8 minutes to go. They just stopped scoring, and their only touchdown was a defensive touchdown to piggyback on how good the Cleveland defense is. No offensive touchdowns for the Browns, defensive touchdowns, and a bunch of sacks. And then they just couldn't run out the clock fast enough to try and hold on to this win. But really, we're rooting for the Ravens on this one after starting out the year so bad? Is this like 4 out of 5 wins or something like that, or 4 wins in a row, give or take?
Yeah, it is. Exactly. It's 4 wins in a row. So this is great. This is great for Zay Flowers. This is great for Mark Andrews, Keaton Mitchell. They all did good. Even your man, what were you? I
I
can't
was
think of
talking about
his
Keaton
name now.
Mitchell a lot last time.
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry, Keaton Mitchell rushing. He did have 6 carries for 31 yards. So, um, Baltimore looks good. Uh, Baltimore looks so good. It makes you go, "Oh yeah, Cleveland's defense is that good," because
Yeah,
Baltimore looks great. Because Baltimore looks
gotcha.
good.
One more thing,
So
you were talking about.
okay,
We were talking about more because you picked up
yeah,
Mark. Play Mark Andrews today. You did, right? Yeah. So you picked up Mark Andrews eyeing
I
those
did.
Cincinnati games later in the season here. But then you're also talking about Isaiah Likely.
Yep.
Isaiah Likely is not breaking through in terms of those two guys. They do it differently, but Mark Andrews just finds a way way more often than I'm not saying Likely won't have a big game now and again, but he's really not part of the main offensive game plan.
Yeah, and it's not that far off in targets for receiving. 5 targets for Mark Andrews and 3 for Isaiah Likely, which I guess 2 targets for a tight end position is a big number. But both Andrews and Zay Flowers were the top targets at 5. This game's probably a little bit of a skewed stat game. But Isaiah had 2. It's just he's not there to do that. So
Right. Right.
when Mark Andrews is on the field, he's on the field to more than likely get a pass thrown his way.
Gotcha. All right.
Yeah. All right. Next up, we have our last game: Kansas City at Denver. The Kansas City Chiefs and the Denver Broncos going into a AFC West divisional game. This game came down to the very end. It came down to a field goal kick with Denver beating the Kansas City Chiefs. I did not get to see the end of this game though. So, do you have anything on this one?
Yeah, I watched this one pretty much exclusively in the later window here.
Okay.
But this game went exactly how you thought it would go. Both these defenses are really good. I'm not blaming you. I was going back and forth like, should I play Harvey or not? I was like, I can't play Harvey. It's not a good matchup. And I did because like you don't how many opportunities you get to put in a guy who's now starting who wasn't before, you know? So I put him in,
Yeah.
but I shouldn't have. Would I play J.K. Dobbins if I had Dobbins this week against Kansas City? No. So I'm saying both these defenses showed up. They really stuffed the run more specifically for both teams here. What's the guy, the cornerback for Denver? Is it Moss? He's got to stop. He's just got to stop doing what he's doing out there. He recovers for 4 seconds and then just grabs the guy's shirt for no reason all the time. He gives up huge pass interference calls. This game shouldn't even have been as close as it was because there are big 4th down and 3rd down conversions due to penalty. This guy gets 3 of them, at least 3 every game, and they're always on 3rd and long. Their defense is so good, and this is like, I don't want to stereotype because I didn't even see. I'm not saying that's why, but like he just sticks out like a sore thumb that he's the one making the mistake out there, and it's like get him off the field. I don't know what he does for the locker room or other plays, but when he makes bad plays, you notice it, and they're big time penalties all the time. We make jokes about him as long as he doesn't get that pass interference, and he does every single week. Gets a huge pass interference, if not multiples. But I don't think there was too many. Were there too many turnovers in this game? I don't think there were. I didn't see too many turnovers that I mentioned. Just good defense, a lot of punting, field position. Mahomes looked good in the second half there on a comeback effort. But once again, these Broncos, we make fun of it that they only win by a couple points at the buzzer against bad teams, but they are seasoned. They know how to do these drives late in games, and they did it once again. And Lutz had a huge kick at the end of the game to win this one at the buzzer.
Yeah, there was one interception by Denver. Jaquan McMillan got that one interception.
That's right. Yep.
Yep. But yeah, you're right. This was tough. RJ Harvey, he only had 50 total yards. He had like 30 on the ground and 20 in the air.
He got most of that in those last 2 drives, and they're trying to use the clock to get into that field goal range, to be honest with you.
Yeah. And then we'd be remiss not to mention that Kareem Hunt was the guy running the ball here, and not very well. 13 for 59. I think you were absolutely right. This was a defensive battle that they just happened to have good offensive, teams here that were able to kind of punch through some points, but it wasn't pretty. It wasn't pretty at all.
Jaleel McLaughlin was the one getting the red zone carries in that first part of the game. I was kind of disappointed as the Harvey manager, but McLaughlin had the same kind of touchdown that Travion Henderson had for his first touchdown, where he just kind of got stopped in a pile. The pile stood up for a second, and then all of a sudden, 6 offensive linemen got their feet and just pushed the whole pile into the end zone. So I wouldn't say it was a rushing touchdown; it was more of a scrum. But nonetheless, they gave the ball to him 3 or 4 times in those situations early. I will say though, I thought maybe they did that because they didn't trust. Because this was McLaughlin's like first game of the year, or first game in a while. He's been on the practice squad or healthy scratches due to number crunches for the last few weeks. So I was a little surprised there. I don't know if they didn't want to give Harvey that much work, but I will say those last 2 drives on the 3rd and shorts, they gave it to Harvey. Harvey picked up some big first downs on those last couple drives. So I think it might have been tempering his workload, not going from 5 carries to 30 carries in 1 week, because he halfway through the 3rd quarter, he was still at 5 carries. I'm like, oh no. But then he had those last 5 or 6 to finish out the game. So maybe it was a pacing issue in terms of his workload. That doesn't make me feel great. They're on bye this coming week, so we'll see what comes of that. But they did trust him in the end. They didn't seem to trust him early, so I don't know what that says for his snaps and production going forward. But he was out there. I thought he was missing the holes a lot, RJ Harvey, if people were wondering, because not a lot of people are watching the backup running back for the Denver Broncos here, and he finally gets a chance to play. So we got to figure out, are these guys good or not? I know he is good, but he was missing. He was running into the back of linemen. I'm like, slow down, dude. Do that like Le'Veon Bell thing, and not that exaggerated, but just take a half step. There's an opening to the right if you just stop and turn to the right instead of running your face as fast as you can into the butt of the guy in front of you.
Yeah, for sure. And then I would be remiss not to say that if you're a Rashee Rice fantasy owner, that this was an anomaly game. Travis Kelce had 13 targets to Rashee Rice's 9. And I think that had a lot to do with Denver's defense. And Travis needed to have a good game before we get closer to the playoffs. It's just unfortunate that they lost, because now they're not going to win the division. And that's going to make their playoff push a little bit tougher than it normally is.
Yeah, sorry, you're right there. We're talking about these divisional games. A lot of them were teams that were, one team might have been, 5-4. One team was 3-6, or something like that, where the win would really separate these guys. And this was one of those. Not in the middle. You're the team on top versus a team trying to catch up. A win by Kansas City puts this thing right back into play. They still would need to win a couple extra games, but now they're not going to have the tiebreaker against Denver. You know what I mean? And they're down by 3 or 4 games now, whatever the math ends up being at this point. So a huge win for Denver in terms of that. And with the Chargers losing, that puts Denver in really strong spot in terms of the division. You mentioned Rice here. Like I said, I was watching this game a lot. He had a couple drops, a few drops that kind of took him out of the first read look there, because he started out getting the first couple reads, and then as he was getting a couple drops and getting frustrated, then they threw like 4 or 5 straight passes to Kelce. The same thing. He would just go up, turn to the inside, go up, turn to the inside, and they were just, because the running game wasn't working, and he was getting pressured by the defense. So they were just doing the short, quick turnaround passes to Kelce. And I will say he was doing a good job of catching him in a crowd and also running after the catch. He looked as spry as he's looked in, I don't want to say in his most athletic days, but at least as spry as he's looked in the last 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, and then also don't sleep on Troy Franklin, and don't sleep on Tyquan Thornton. Tyquan Thornton only had 1 reception today.
It was a great catch,
2 targets.
Big catch.
It was a big time catch, and that's just going to build confidence with Mahomes and with Andy Reid to get him, as the season goes on, especially come fantasy playoff time, to get him a little bit more worked in, so they're not killing their Rashee Rices and their Hollywood Browns and their Worthies and their Kelseys right before playoff time, right before NFL playoff time.
I will say a couple more things real quick since you mentioned it. Troy Franklin has definitely solidified him as the number 2 receiver, maybe even a 1B. He's been really good there. Big time clutch catches as well. And Marvin Mims finally came back. He wasn't felt in the receiving game, but he was definitely felt in the return game. He turned, like I said, there's a lot of punts in this game, and or kickoffs after a few field goals. His long kickoff returns really turned the game, which made it a little easier for Denver to keep up scoring wise, because they didn't do as good on offense as Kansas City, but they had better field position more often. And a lot of that was due to Marvin Mims. He had like 2 or 3 really big runs, especially to start the second half and late in the 4th quarter.
Yep, for sure. All right, and that's it. We had Sunday night, Detroit and Philadelphia. Philadelphia won that game, and then tomorrow night we will have Dallas at Las Vegas.
We had a bit of a snooze fest here with not too much scoring going on in the windy game in Philadelphia. So that one, I think it was 16-9 by the end there, with a bad penalty that took away the ball out of Detroit was down by 7 on defense with about a minute and a half to go on a 4th down play. They called a defensive holding, which gave the first down to Philadelphia. They were able to kneel the ball out after that. But if they would have stopped them there, they would have had the ball down a touchdown and would be very interesting. Nonetheless, Philadelphia finds a way to win, even ugly as it might be. And Detroit has had a few more losses than we would anticipate this season so far. They're not are they behind now, the Bears? Do you know? I don't know. It's a lot to ask, I know.
Yeah, I think they are.
So, yeah, they're both about that 6-win mark, give or take. So,
Yeah.
yeah. All right, guys. With that being said, let's get into some early waiver wire targets as we're a long show. We have a lot of games. But that's all right. Bernie, I've got a list here. Do you want me to go through my quarterbacks or do you want to go through them first? It's up to you.
No, go for it.
All right, I've got 3 quarterbacks catching my list, and I have a 4th one I just thought of. We got Davis Mills. They're playing against Buffalo. The early news was we're not sure if C.J. Stroud is going to make it back in time. Again, that is all pending whether Stroud is back. But Mills, not great, but in a game where they're going to have to score to keep up with Buffalo here, and he does target his best players. He's been decent in terms of fantasy quarterback, so I got Davis Mills here. We've got Mason Rudolph against Chicago. I think Chicago you can score on, just Vikings do not do it. If Aaron Rodgers is out, Mason Rudolph is a starting quarterback. Jameis Winston in a tougher matchup against Detroit. Again, if there's quick scoring for Detroit, Jameis Winston might have a chance to have to keep up there as well. And I'm going to say this, I almost don't want to say it out loud because it bit me in the butt last time. Similar to that Joe Burrow pickup that I mentioned several weeks ago that one of our managers did earlier than I would have anticipated. Kyler Murray, if he's not out of the job completely, they're not winning with Jacoby Brissett. He's playing a lot better in terms of fantasy, but he's getting big-time turnovers. In about 2 to 4 weeks, there's a chance Kyler Murray might be a starting quarterback again for the Arizona Cardinals. Do you have any other quarterbacks you want to mention?
If you're really, really stuck at the quarterback position, then Tyler Shuck might get you unstuck. He's going up against Atlanta coming off of the bye week. His week 10 performance was pretty good against Carolina. He had 19, just over 19 fantasy points in that game against a stout Carolina defense. So Atlanta showed that they are willing to let a quarterback throw 400 yards on them.
Yeah.
So Tyler Shuck, if you're desperate, he's available.
All right, time out real quick. I hate to say this in the middle of a long show here, but I'm watching the news here after the game. You know, cranberry sauce is up 46% in price this year.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
I got a mic rant ready.
We are off the rails.
Okay. All right, now for running back. Sorry. Well, now for running back waiver wire early targets here. I got Emmanuel Wilson here, guys. I wish I had him on my team still. I'm going to spend big on him this week, letting you guys know. Emmanuel Wilson up against the Minnesota Vikings this week. We saw both Monangai have a touchdown and DeAndre Swift have good games against Minnesota. And if he's the main back, he's going to be get a decent chance here for the Green Bay Packers if Josh Jacobs is out. Devin Singletary, he's a split back mate here of Tyron Tracy up against Detroit. Not a great matchup here, but he did show he is one of the guys who could get in the end zone for them. And a sneaky hold stash here. I've got Keaton Mitchell versus the New York Jets. Again, not a pickup to play, but a pickup to stash. A lot of this is based upon how long Justice Hill might be out. That we don't know. He did miss this game. Not sure how much more time he might miss behind Derrick Henry. Do you have any other running backs that catch your attention?
Chuba Hubbard and Isaiah Davis. Just keep them on your radar.
Fair enough. Our receivers this time, if you didn't pick him up this week, one of our managers did. Good on him. But Michael Wilson is out there up against Jacksonville. Again, another toughish defense here. But if he's already going to be promoted with Zay Jones being out, but we'll have to keep tabs on Marvin Harrison. But Michael Wilson showed if you get in the ball, he will make the catches here. So he should be on the top of your list. And Bretton Strange, we saw what George Kittle did this week against Arizona. The Jacksonville Jaguars are going against Arizona next week. He was not activated from the IR this week, but he practiced all week. I expect him to be back on the field in a plus matchup against the Arizona Cardinals. Any receivers you have here?
No, maybe Cedric Tillman. Cleveland's going up against Las Vegas. Tillman did look okay with Sanders for the first couple completions that Sanders had. So Cedric Tillman, if you're desperate for a super flex.
Another one here. Now we're moving to kickers. I got Daniel Carlson. We always mention him because he's always available. They're playing against Cleveland. Tough defense, but not a high scoring team where field goals will be, you're not going to go for on 4th down a lot. You'll take the field goal here. This game is indoors. It's not in Cleveland. That's a big push here. That's going to be in Las Vegas in the Dome. So I got Daniel Carlson here. Blake Grupe, New Orleans against Atlanta. And then I've got Harrison Melvis, the thicker kicker picker-upper from the from the LA Rams, filling in for Cardi. They're playing against Tampa Bay. Again, another game that's going to be potentially high scoring, and that game, too, is inside the Dome in LA. Do you have any kickers that catch your attention? There's a lot out there, so it's hard to whittle it down to a couple.
Yeah, I would stay with that New Orleans Atlanta game because it's in the Dome. Zane Gonzalez on the other side should be available as well.
In that vein here, we saw the weather this week was windy this week. Last week was that last week?
Yeah.
That was rainy. We're getting into the time of the year where this weather is now going to be a factor here. So you're aiming for inside games just to take out a variable if you can. So you want good matchups, but look inside to start your list here. And now for defenses here, Las Vegas versus Cleveland. If you got Dylan Gabriel but even if Shedeur Sanders, you got tons and tons of sacks coming, guys. Potentially interceptions here. Max Crosby is going to have fun chasing down either one of these rookie quarterbacks. I'm not calling one out over the other. I'm just saying it's Cleveland with rookie quarterbacks. Vegas is a sneaky defense to look to pick up this week. And the New Orleans Saints up against Atlanta. You wouldn't say it's a big time matchup, but Kirk Cousins has a tendency to potentially get on a interception binge. So keep an eye on that as another sneaky streaming defense. I got Las Vegas and New Orleans.
Yeah. So just one question then. How much is Crazy Fish going to pay for Las Vegas defense?
I might pick him up because I made a big move today dropping the Rams for Butker, which actually backfired on me a little bit. So now I had two good defenses. Now that I'm done with holding on to two defenses, I might go the streaming way because holding on to them has not been good for me. So I'm going for Las Vegas this week. You got to put $22 in there, Crazy Fish, if you want them. I'm putting 21 in. I guarantee that right now.
There it is. There it is.
We know Bernie's putting in 5, so that's his max, and we'll go from there.
No, I think
guys.
I got my
All right.
defenses for the rest of the year.
Good. All right, guys. I want to thank you all for joining us for another episode of Wingman Fantasy Football, the League Podcast. A little longer today. We had less teams on by this week, and we went through it all. So if you want to find our audio feeds, you can find us on your favorite podcasting platform. Just search Wingman the League. We'll come to the top of your search. If you want to see our show, we do this on video as well. You can go to our YouTube channel at wingmanfantasyfootball.com/YouTube or youtube.com/@ Wingman Fantasy Football. When you head over there, guys, do me the favor. Please leave a thumbs up, leave a subscribe, hit the notification bell, and leave a comment and let us know what you think about some of our fantasy football trades and our Wingman Jam selections. With that being said, guys, thank you so much. May your glasses be full, your mugs stay frosty.
And if you type with one finger, try typing with two.
Very good. Good advice. Is that how you typed your script you couldn't read? All right, guys, we'll see you next time.